program you are about to hear is Karma and Tithing. It is part of a series of discussions with Richard Kinninger entitled On Becoming an Initiate.
It is intended that every human ego learn all there is to know of the first four planes of existence in order to eventually become one with God. To do this, you must develop your God-given abilities of mind, which are the same as God's, but which must be activated to full potential through experience and usage. All human egos, which are created by God in His own image, are identical, even though they are assigned to different kinds of bodies evolved by the angels of the various planets throughout the universe. All the tools to launch and further the evolution of your mind have been built into your brain by our angelic creators. The earth and nature provide all the materials necessary for human comprehension and manipulation of the physical plane and your eventual mastery of it. God's system does not leave out a single factor for your success in becoming an adept. You are spurred to learn and to classify knowledge because of your inherent curiosity and your desire to predict the future in order to know what you will have to prepare for and to protect yourself against. Your God-given discontent with the status quo and your built-in need for excitement and novelty ever impel you to search further. Your egoic hunger to pit yourself against challenges leads to greater aspiration and the incentive to build bigger and better tools, mental and physical, to extend your control and power. In the process of doing all these things, you encounter the limitations imposed by nature and the potential for conflict with other human beings. By angelic design, your social interactions with people are largely brought about by psychological needs and drives which are inherent in your physical vehicle. You need body contact from earliest infancy on, depend on psychological stimulation from other persons for your maintenance of sanity, are subject to sex drives which demand interaction with others to obtain healthy gratification, and are the inheritor of the mammalian herding instinct. These urge you to interpersonal associations which demand balanced give and take. Your egocentric tendencies are tempered by your dependence upon others. You must give something in order to get what you want. Everyone's free choice of whether he will engage in personal dealings with you force your consideration that there be equal benefit to both sides from every interaction, and this is overseen by the universal law of karma. Every legal contract or sale of goods or exchange of services recognizes a basic obligation of a fair and equitable transaction. Many undertakings cannot be managed alone, and intentions to induce the cooperation of others in a familial, social, political, or military activity must recognize that each partaker expects to receive a benefit. In order that you may be neither taken advantage of nor use others to their disadvantage, the rules of karma are available to guide you in human affairs involving emotions, economics, and physical injury. There is no way that you can violate the law of karma any more than the law of gravity can be violated. You have free will to do anything you want, but the natural consequences are unavoidable. In this respect, the law of karma is highly educative, for you eventually come to understand that for every hurtful action you initiate, hurt returns to you, and for every good that you do, good returns to you in equal measure. The ancient judgment, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, is an expression of the exactitude of karma. Experience teaches you that your life becomes pleasant as you put forth towards others only those actions which you find desirable for yourself. God maintains total justice throughout the universe by means of His law of karma. Universal laws are the key to your ability to understand how God has ordered the creation. God makes Himself known to us through His laws, which maintain cosmic order and balance. To perceive universal law is to know God's will. A consistent, observable response to a specific action implies the existence of a law, and this applies to physics, chemistry, biology, psychology, and economics, as well as to karma. Everything in the universe exists or functions in direct accord with God's intention. All the principles of existence are God's will. The Brotherhoods have devoted millennia to discerning universal law for the benefit of mankind. Painful consequences that arise from past actions provide motivation for you to figure out their cause. When you come to understand the law of karma, you can take it into account to avoid pain in the future and to bring only good to you instead. The person who has perceived universal law and lives in accordance with it is able to hew to the core of life and not leave ripples in his wake. He has learned how to run his life in a wholly beneficial, effective, and pleasant way by making his will correspond to God's will, as evidenced in God's laws. The law of karma covers the area of human relationships and is a subsection of the more general law of cause and effect. The law of cause and effect is that for every action there is a reaction equal in force but opposite in direction. Everything you do on the physical plane initiates an immediate response. Everything you put forth in the area of human affairs causes a reaction which will eventually come back to affect you, but it can be delayed for long periods, which makes it difficult to discern the cause and effect relationships. Karma does not apply to animals or to human actions toward animals. If you kick a dog, it may bite you because of its instinctual defense mechanisms. But if you shoot ducks, poison rats and bugs, or slaughter cattle, you will never be attacked or killed by an animal out of karmic retribution. If what you say or do is beneficial to others, then it shall be returned to you accordingly. The same applies to your negative actions. Whatever you sow, you shall reap. No higher being ever rewards or punishes you. Everything that enters your environment and that happens to you is a direct effect of your action, precipitation, prayer, or mental attraction. The self-executing universal principle of karma maintains total justice throughout the planet. You are setting into motion today the causes which will eventually have their effect on you in the future. By consciously applying the law of karma, you can initiate only those actions which will, when returned, add positively to the environment you desire for yourself. In determining what is constructive and what is detrimental, it is important to look beyond the surface of things. If you encounter a panhandler in the street, it may seem charitable to give him a handout. However, chances are that your generosity is really misplaced, as it only helps to keep the panhandler in a dependent, irresponsible lifestyle where he receives something without compensating for it through some service. If no one would give this man handouts in response to his begging, he would eventually be forced to find some means of earning a living. On the surface, giving money to a panhandler may seem to be a kind act, but you are actually helping him to sink farther into karmic debt. Moreover, if you give a man a fish, you have but fed him for a day. If you really want to help him, teach that man how to fish, and you will have fed him for his lifetime. The determining factor of whether or not your actions are constructive or detrimental to others is whether or not they turn out to be for the greatest good of all concerned. Your intentions are important, only insofar as they reflect your character and inner values. However, if you, even with the best of intentions, do something to the detriment of another, you must face the consequence in accordance with karma. There is a record kept of each person's every thought and action, and this is called the Akashic record. It is a natural function of the etheric plane, and the Bible calls this record the Book of God's Remembrances. As part of your Akashic record, an account of your karmic credits and debits is kept. Your constructive actions earn you credits. Conversely, your actions which are harmful to others incur debits. These credits and debits in karmic accountancy can be likened to entries in a cosmic bank account. Your accumulation of credits due you from good works are the treasures in heaven which Christ referred to as a person's only real security. You receive credits and debits commensurate with the net result of your actions. A long life of good deeds will gain credits which can be used to offset any debits you may incur. Likewise, by performing good works, you can accrue the necessary credits to offset previous debits. There are many ways in which you may improve the status of your karmic account. In fact, it's a good practice to habitually build up credits whenever possible. These extra credits can be called upon in times of need. Whenever you perform some beneficial task without thought of praise or compensation, you are giving excess service. Excess service will always earn credits for you. For instance, you may have a job as a machinist for 8 hours a day, for which you are paid an agreed-upon wage. In exchange for your wage, your employer expects an agreed-upon amount of production. Now, if you meet his requirements and then, of your own free will, produce more than is expected, you are gaining credits. If you find better ways of doing your job so as to cut down on the cost of production, you are also gaining credits due to excess service. Frequently, these credits are directly returned to you in the form of a promotion or raise. The person who consistently produces more than he consumes enjoys prosperity. The careless, slapdash worker who turns out defective products should not wonder that the goods he buys turn out to be lemons or are marred or spoiled. Karmic credits can be gained by aiding the truly needy. When you improve the environment of another person, provided you don't do things for him which he can do for himself, you earn karmic credits. Whatever you make him the recipient of, he must eventually repay, even if to someone else. The donee incurs debits as a result of getting something from you for nothing. Therefore, your help caused him to get debits, and whoever contributes to another person's taking on negative karma receives about half as many debits as the recipient of the gift. This offsets half of the credits you get from giving your aid. However, you are still netting karmic credits. When rendering help, you must not interfere in the environment of the recipient, for that also would bring negative karma to you. Examples of interference are imposing your handouts when he states he doesn't want them, forcing him into dependence on you, taking advantage of his desperate plight in order to exact indenture, usurious repayment, or immoral act. Your efforts to control your environment and make it more to your liking will not be successful in the long run if in order to do so you manipulate or control others. People eventually rebel against the use of fear, force, and guilt to make them serve persons in power to the server's detriment. This has long been the grave error of tyrants and domineering people, and the karmic repercussions are too great to risk. The true factors that assure a beneficent environment for you are positive karma and the natural mental attraction of your elevated thoughts, and self-confident expectations of goodness precipitating into your life. It is generally safer not to get involved in direct help of people with health and financial problems because of the potentials for your interfering. In all events, you must be sure that you have the express consent of whomever you would help to operate in their environment. However, you should respond to appeals for help in emergencies, even at the risk of your life. Organized societies have schools and hospitals to uplift and succor those who go there to improve their lot. Contributing your energy and money to an agency which assists another's determined efforts for self-improvement is the surest way to maximize your gain of karmic credits. This is not to imply that cooperative endeavors and mutual support among people in a community should be diminished. Give and take between equals is beneficial for all. There is no such thing as something for nothing. If you seek to acquire something, you must expend sufficient energy to make it or pay for it, or else have a sufficient accumulation of past credits to compensate for it. Every benefit you receive must be paid for, or else you will eventually lose it. You are provided with many benefits by nature which are seemingly free, but that would not be possible. There is a price you are charged by the cosmos even for the energies and sunshine. Many people have discovered that the process of tithing is essential to maintaining their prosperity and keeping their karmic account in balance. Otherwise, their continual receipt of benefits from natural sources would exhaust their karmic account of credits. The angels lovingly created the world and its resources, which we need to survive, and evolved our physical bodies, and for this they ask nothing, although they appreciate our gratitude. However, our angelic host continues to perform daily services for mankind, such as developing new animals and plants to compensate for man's ecological depredations, sustaining equilibrium of forces on and within the earth, answering prayer, and protecting the planet. In addition to this, the archangels daily generate all the energies needed by life forms at the 4 nutational rates pertinent to man's existence, and thus they sustain all our food sources and provide warmth. They also hold the physical plane together by their thought. This is work of which man is beneficiary and for which he is obliged to compensate. In order for tithing to be most effective, you should donate 10% of your net earnings to an organization or cause which is, in fact, advancing God's plan for mankind's improvement. By helping others along the path in this way, you are compensating for the blessings which you receive from the higher beings, and thus you also become co-contributors to the uplift of the human condition. In addition, by your very act of helping, you are improving the world in which you live. As you act more and more out of an awareness of the law of karma, your environment is more inclined to be to your liking. First, you are learning how to avoid the types of things which get you into trouble. Second, you are earning credits which you can use to acquire the things you need, or for building a reserve which could be drawn upon for your protection in emergencies or disasters. Third, you must have no karmic debts before you can become a member of a brotherhood. Having sufficient economic wherewithal, so you need not be overly anxious about your mundane needs, is valuable to your spiritual development. The rendering of excess service and your conscientious observance of tithing will greatly increase your individual prosperity. When a person starts to tithe after a lifetime of not having done so, he usually does not experience immediate improvement of his financial affairs. His karmic account is probably very overdrawn and must be replenished by a year or two of adding credits. It is interesting that after a period of tithing regularly, the amount you give away is replaced by a corresponding increase in your income. By having been a good steward of some assets of the world, you are then led to control of greater resources, so that ever more credits can be channeled by you through tithing to God's work. Perception of this fact is the great secret taught by authors of study courses on how to become wealthy. This automatic increase of income because of tithing always works, for it operates in accordance with universal law, and you, the steward, get to keep and use the other 90% of the increase above the tithe you give on it. In order for you to optimize the rate of this increasing of income and resources, you should balance your expenditures of money so that at least half goes to the purchase of services, while the other half, or less, go for things you personally consume. This proportion in spending gets easier as your wealth increases. If you also donate your labor or personal services to a legitimate charitable cause or organization that betters man, without first converting the karmic labor credits into their monetary equivalent, the law of increase still operates. You receive either an equivalent monetary increase or an increase in your receipt of services. This principle explains why the rich of the world are so purposeful in their generous contributions of money and services. The United States has been buoyed up by personal, corporate, and national largesse for which we are renowned. Many people understand about the advantages of being good stewards. There is nothing immoral about being rich. Wealth gives you the tools to accomplish something worthwhile for mankind. In a sense, providing excess service by serving others is a prerequisite to your becoming a brother. Nature normally does not allow for an excessive amount of credits or debits to build up in your karmic account, but rather balances out by causing a windfall to come into your life, or, on the debit side, by causing some financial loss to occur. In the course of a lifetime, a person may not be able to balance his credits or debits before he goes through transition. In that case, his credits or debits, or combinations of them, are not canceled, but rather carried over to his next incarnation. Karma is a Sanskrit word and literally means carryover. By building a long record of excess service, you are not only benefiting in this lifetime, but also gathering the credits which can provide for a more advantageous childhood in your next incarnation. Whatever credits or debits you have accrued over the course of your last lifetime must be held in abeyance until you incarnate again, because you cannot work off debits except on the physical plane. The environment and conditions into which you reincarnate are limited by your karma. Your new physical, economic, and emotional surroundings will be greatly influenced by the status of your carried-over account. Even though you choose the time, the place, and the parents for each incarnation, you cannot benefit from an environment for which you have not previously prepared yourself or earned karmically. Before I go further, I want to emphasize that you may decide before incarnating to live a life which to others may appear to be the result of negative karma. You may take on certain handicaps to force yourself to learn a difficult lesson, or you may incarnate among an impoverished or backward people to help uplift them. So it's important not to generalize that all hardships are the outworkings of negative karma. Until you are able to read the Akashic record, you really have no way of surely judging another's karma. Nevertheless, the health and soundness of the body you occupy in a new incarnation, as well as the nature of the environment you incarnate into, are directly affected by the status of your karmic account. For example, without the necessary economic credits, you should not incarnate into a wealthy family. There are three basic types of karma. These are physical, emotional, and economic, and they are not interchangeable from one kind to another. A person may, for example, have accumulations of credits in both physical and economic karma, but have negative emotional karma. The credits in the first two areas cannot offset the debits of the emotional karma. Physical karma entails the things which you have done relative to another's health or the well-being of his physical vehicle. Examples of acts generating karmic credits would be a wife's ministrations to her long ill husband, or rescuing a drowning person. Examples of acts resulting in karmic debits would be breaking someone's arm or committing murder. Emotional karma applies to psychological benefits or hurts which others experience as a result of involvement with you. If you have many positive, loving relationships in which all parties flourish, you are apt to experience these same kinds of relationships in your next incarnation. The person who exploits the emotions of others and causes them anguish and sorrow is likely to be placed in a position whereby he is emotionally exploited in turn. If you have deserted a loved one in another life, you will experience the very same hurt in this or a subsequent lifetime. If you have positive economic karma, it may be manifested in the form of good luck in your business transactions. Perhaps you don't work very hard, but the breaks always seem to fall in your lap. If a person is suffering from the settling of negative economic karma, he may find himself working as hard as he can and still not be able to get ahead. Just when it looks like he will be able to get his budget balanced and is starting that higher-paying job, his car breaks down and he's hit with a big doctor bill. The settling of negative karma is not something sent by God to crush us. He never takes vengeance on us. Your hardships are either the impersonal outworkings of karmic law or merely of your poor attitudes. Failure or some other difficulty may mean you are not giving proper consideration to some important factor. In either case, don't give up. Eventually you will perceive your error, or you will work through your negative karma if you determinedly desire it. Remember, in all events, by doing acts of excess service, you gain valuable credits which can offset your karmic debits. It is interesting to note that you can help to prevent negative karma from being received by someone who would cause you emotional pain. Christ said, "Turn the other cheek." If you can control, through the virtue of forbearance, your attitude or reaction to a normally hurtful deed, it can roll off you like water from a duck's back. If you take the hurt to heart, and you genuinely suffer, the person who has hurt you incurs karmic debits. An ego through lifetimes of careless living without regard for karmic accountancy may come to the point where he has so much negative karma that it may tend to hold back his chances for egoic growth or even his survival through childhood. In situations like that, the lords of karma, who are discarnate adepts, are able to spread the karmic retribution over several of his lives. By cushioning the karma in this manner, the individual is able to continue his progress. It was in a similar manner that Christ, 2,000 years ago, placed our Earth's national, racial, and group karmas in temporary abeyance. He took away the sins of the world, but the karmic debits due from each individual's personal acts remained unaffected. This had the effect of taking away the individual's crushing share of his group's karma, referred to in the Bible as the sins of the fathers visited unto the seventh generation. By temporarily relieving the cycle of inherited karmic retribution, which had immobilized mankind's progress on this planet, Christ gave mankind additional time to work toward civilization. However, as we approach the turn of this century, the karmic cushioning will be decreased and finally removed before the battle of Armageddon, when the archangelic host will return the group karmas which it has been holding for 20 centuries. The book of Revelations refers to this as the pouring out upon the earth of the vials of the 7 last plagues. Nations and groups of people have karmic accounts, and any group of people acting collectively is held accountable for its corporate actions. Entire races have incurred group karma as a result of aggressively attacking their neighbors, or engaging in sharp trading practices that gyp others, or enslaving other peoples. Therefore, inasmuch as you need to take great care not to incur debits as an individual, we all should be equally as cautious in our dealings as a nation or as a business corporation lest we individually share proportionally in its joint karmic debits. In the forthcoming nation of God, each citizen will receive extensive training on universal laws. Such education was also the case in ancient Lemuria, and this resulted in thousands of years of uninterrupted peace and prosperity. In all situations where there is potential for karmic interplay, follow the golden rule. Do unto others that which you would have them do unto you. Your every action is reflected back to you. By remaining cognizant of this simple truth, you can spare yourself a great deal of suffering. The benefits can be experienced almost immediately, and if you continue your adherence to universal law, your joy and growth will increase with each lifetime. Before you act, before you commit any impulse to action, consider the consequences in the light of the law of karma. It is the will of our Creator that you grow naturally and unimpeded towards perfection. Joy, love, health, prosperity, and effective control of your life are intended for you by God. By no longer introducing your own stumbling blocks, these blessings will be yours. God's laws are just, self-executing, and perfect. You can enjoy the advantages that come from working with them, or you can suffer the repercussions of going against them. The choice is forever yours. Are there any questions?
Does the law of cause and effect apply to the astral plane?
Yes.
How does the law of karma apply to the astral plane?
That's rather complicated. Karma governs human interactions primarily on the physical plane. However, it's possible for a discarnate ego to pick up karmic debits by mentally interfering in the environment of an incarnate ego. Were a spirit to protect a person on a mundane level by, say, mentally deflecting his enemies, or by influencing an employer to choose him over others for a promotion, or by manipulating the emotional moods of his prospective spouse to make her choose him, or were that spirit to control any person's thinking, that would earn the spirit entity negative karma, which he can't work off while he's on the astral plane.
When we get credits from our giving excess service, is the recipient of our excess service getting a corresponding debit?
Yes, he is getting something for nothing, and you must not refuse your recipient's offer to compensate you, for thereby he can cancel his debits. It is because of this complication that I advise a person to gain credits by serving or tithing through an organization.
Stell Group receives donations to help build the city of Stell. Isn't Stell incurring negative karma by this? If so, how is this to be handled?
Donations received by Stell from non-members go almost entirely to operate our school system, which is a direct service in God's work. Tithes from Stell members go towards our internal administrative services. The assets of the community have come from the capital investments and donated labor of the Stell participants themselves. However, substantial growth of Stell in the future will have to come from large donations of capital to match the donated labor of the city's inhabitants. When these stored-up credits, which have been amassed on the outside for generations, are donated to build Stell, I have been told by my teachers that the resulting debits received by Stell are to be prorated over the next 7,000 years among the generations inhabiting the nation of God. They will be the beneficiaries of the massive effort put forth by the members of Stell in their creation of the culture to be precursor to the nation of God. It would not be fair for this generation to bear the burden of all that work, plus all the karmic indebtedness. True, the inhabitants of Stell get to enjoy the fruits of their own labors, but they earn that directly.
What's the difference between taxes and tithing?
Taxes are levied by a government to pay for all the services which the citizens receive directly in return. The benefits from taxes are received by the payers. Tithes are donations to the furtherance of God's work, and to be such, they cannot inure to the benefit of the tither. To whatever extent he may possibly receive some mundane benefit from his own tithe, that is deducted karmically from the credits he receives from giving the tithe.
Isn't it inherent in tithing that it be voluntarily given?
The universe doesn't consider it voluntary or involuntary. If you don't pay it, you experience the consequences.
Where did the concept of tithing originate?
It was introduced at the beginning of the Lemurian civilization by higher beings, and this factor was instrumental in making Lemuria the richest and most secure culture in our planet's history. The concept was reintroduced in more recent times by Moses when he required the Jews to surrender the first fruits of their annual increase for the sustenance of God's work and to enhance the increase of their nation's wealth.
How do you determine the value of something for sale?
By the total amount of human effort that went into its gathering, processing, or manufacture, and by a buyer's willingness to pay on an open market. You may set a value of $25 an hour on your labor to make an item, but if no one is willing to pay that much, you may end up having received a prorated earning of $6 per hour after you finally settled on a price with a buyer.
We receive many things as an infant and a child from our parents. Are we getting debits for the food, clothing, toys, education, and love our parents provide us?
Yes, a child receives something for nothing in that respect. However, this is compensated when the child grows up and he has children of his own. It is not necessary that the child's receipt of support be paid back to his parents. The delay factor in balancing of karmic accountancy allows this lapse of a generation's time between receiving and discharging such debits.
Can you incarnate into the nation of God if you have negative karma?
No, at least not until after the end of the millennial reign of Melchizedek.
Does one need to have positive karma to be in the STEL group?
But we do not require it, since we have no way of knowing an applicant's karmic status. However, the more positive karmic STEL participants have, the better it is for everyone involved. The aggregate karma of the group is made up of the individual karmic accounts of each member. It is just like the joining together of a man's and woman's karma when they marry and become an economic unit. If one spouse has negative karma and the other's is neutral, they will have a struggle getting ahead. If one has some negative karma, but the other has massive positive karma, both will enjoy the benefits of prosperity.
Are we always in the right place at the right time?
Yes, there is no such thing as chance or accident in human affairs. If you are at a place where some natural disaster acts upon you, it is because of what you initiated earlier in this life or a prior life. Even the people who enter your life do so either by pre-incarnate arrangements or astral agreement or mental attraction or conscious precipitation.
What is $1's worth of karma anyway?
The Fed says that $1 is worth what it will buy, so $1 is worth whatever everybody by practice in the marketplace tacitly agrees it is worth. There is no absolute measure when you are discussing karma. I can show you relationships, but you have to draw your own conclusions. You can't quantify everything in the world. Whatever you own is worth what you feel it is worth to you. Who knows how you can even compare your values to another person's? The thing you have to remember about karma is, since your wage or the items you are selling are subject to free, open bargaining between the seller and the buyer, then whatever agreed upon price you arrive at is the value of the thing so far as you two are concerned at that particular time. That should end the matter. You just wouldn't enter an agreement on a free and open trading situation that was not satisfying to you, even though we would all like to get more out of every bargain. You would say, "We can't get together, so I'm not going to sell." But if in desperation you say, "This is obviously worth more, but I would like the money now," then you sell for his price, and that is it. You can't go home and say, "The other guy gypped me." He didn't. You agreed. It was a free and open agreement. The karmic accountancy is equal between both sides. It was an even exchange. Period.
If a top officer of a corporation secretly engages in illegal, underhanded, and karmically unsound practices to bring more profits to his company, does every employee share in the karmic debits being amassed by the company, even though they know nothing about the top officer's schemes and have had no hand in perpetrating them?
No, the employees do not get karmic debits since they were not party to the schemes. However, when the negative karma starts balancing out for the corporation, the workers may suffer from loss of their jobs or from being reduced to a shortened work week. The unwitting stockholders will suffer from loss of return on their capital investment and may even lose their money.
What if the employees were all in on the scheme from the beginning?
Then they would also have shared pro rata in receiving negative karma all along, in addition to losing their jobs when the balancing comes about.
When the leadership of our nation surreptitiously gets us into wars, or secretly operates in the internal affairs of other nations politically and economically, or allows unscrupulous banking interests to undermine our currency, are we, the people, exempted from sharing in the karmic retribution due the nation for such underhanded acts of the leaders?
There is no way that the whole citizenry cannot be affected by the working out of our nation's negative karma. However, we in a democracy cannot be considered innocent bystanders. It is our duty to carefully select the administrators of the land and the legislators of the laws, and be vigilant watchers of the people we elect to public office. We have the power to elect whomever will capably uphold the Constitution, and not elect those who subvert it. The entire electorate is totally responsible for those we put in power. so we all share equally in any negative group karma that our nation earns.
How could I possibly balance out my share of the incredible national debt?
By becoming a millionaire honestly.
No, I mean reasonably. How could I?
Move to a nation that has no karmic debt.
That's going pretty far.
Well, I was born in this country, and I'm happy to be an American. But I hope to die in a country which is not my native land, the nation of God.
If an engineer who can normally earn $30,000 a year in the United States comes to live in Stell, and he agrees to do engineering work for the Stell Group for $10,000 a year, does he gain $20,000 a year in karmic credits to make up the difference?
No, he doesn't get any karmic credits for that. Their agreement mutually establishes the price for his work, and so there is an equal karmic exchange between the parties involved. The engineer must be getting some other kind of satisfaction from the arrangement, or he wouldn't have entered the agreement. People do not work for money alone. Moreover, the outside price bid for his services as an engineer is probably influenced by whether there is a shortage of people trained in his specialty, or if his specialty happens to be a glut on the local labor market. His chance for a high wage in the general marketplace is then more a reflection of supply and demand than of the karmic value of his labor or trained skills as compared against all other men.
I've heard you give an example of karma, saying that if you kill a person, then during this lifetime or in a later lifetime you can expect to get killed in retribution. My feeling is that anything that is negative karma can be paid back with any kind of negative situation. It doesn't have to be event for event, act for act.
Let me add something, and then you can go on. If you murder somebody who has recently finished college and he has just gotten married and he has started a business that is really becoming successful, then don't imagine that someone killing you when you are a doddering 94-year-old would even out your karma. In order for karma to be fair and educative, you would have to be killed in the prime of your next incarnation, when your preparations for life are finally together and life really has become sweet.
Well, I agree with that, but I'm saying that it doesn't have to be act for act. He could lose his fortune. He doesn't have to be killed. It would be the same thing.
You can't compare loss of a fortune to physical karma. Economic karma, physical karma, and emotional karma are entirely different categories which can't be transferred one to another. In other words, you can't break a woman's heart and then lose some money and expect the karma to come out equal. One category cannot be used to cancel out another.
I wasn't speaking of one canceling out another. When you create negative karma, you're going to receive the resulting negative karma. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a repeat of the act that caused your negative karma.
It comes pretty close to it. However, there are things that you can do to ameliorate negative karma so that it comes back in a milder form. Maybe you will be able to totally cancel it out with positive deeds. For instance, let's say you murder somebody, but at some later date you were able to save 3 children from a blazing house at great risk of injury to yourself. That can definitely be used to offset murdering somebody. You took a life, but you literally, in this case, gave back 3 lives. There are many ways that one can work off negative karmas, but I can't imagine how losing a fortune could offset murdering someone. You just can't set a monetary price on murder. You have to be made to learn how wrong it is by actually having it happen to you. The only way that the horrendous injustice of snuffing out another's life can be brought home is for you to go through the same thing. Only then is it a true lesson. And just losing money, which you can later earn more of, is not the same as losing all power to function on this plane by the total incapacitation of one's body.
What about casual agreements? For example, helping a friend build a garage and the agreement is not really clear as to how much will be paid, if anything.
That's the fault of not making prior, clear agreements. Write them down. Set an exchange value, hour for hour or dollar for dollar. Good friends stay good friends through agreements made in advance. Benjamin Franklin advised people going into partnership to always draw up a good set of articles of agreement. How would you deal with materials or tools that help or damages? Somebody helping you for 8 hours can easily spoil $1,500 worth of materials. You need agreements as to who should shoulder the risks. The mutual giving of assistance should be encouraged among people. Clear ground rules will keep anyone from getting a bad taste in his mouth from having tried to be a good neighbor.
As far as emotional karma is concerned, would it be true that you are pretty much subject to whom you deal with?
Yes, those are subtle traps that you have to be alert to. The only way that you could avoid those kinds of situations would be not to have any kind of relationships with anybody and never say anything, but that would be ridiculous. So we all have to explore and send out feelers into the world. You have to touch base with many people to find out who you are and where they stand, and what you can do with one another that will be mutually beneficial. In some cases, you can just walk into a situation blindly and almost faultlessly and still cause emotional pain because you don't know the customs that the other party is used to. There are things a man can do and say with a 26-year-old woman that would crush and humiliate a 16-year-old girl. It's wise to be aware of what is likely to cause emotional upset to people in various stages of growth and in various social settings. If they become genuinely hurt, you get very real karmic debits.
What are the implications of inheriting money from your parents or relatives? Is that something you owe to the universe karmically?
Well, you got something for nothing, but you would have to spend some of the money on yourself before you would start getting involved with karma. As long as it just sits in the bank and picks up interest and you don't use any of it, then you are just the steward of it. Karma gets involved when you personally use or consume things that you buy with the money, such as getting the benefit of services or occupying a house, eating food, or wearing out an automobile.
What if you donate the inheritance to a group that you think is a good cause? Does the group that you donated to get the negative karma that came with the inheritance passed along to them?
Yes, the group gets the karmic debits which accompany the cash credits. You are just acting as a transmitter in that case. Then that group, which, in turn, performs benefits for individuals in need, becomes a transmitter of the debits to the end recipients of the gift.
You have been listening to Karma and Tithing as part of a series of discussions with Richard Kinninger entitled On Becoming an Initiate.